Often people have said, well, if you think perception is a controlled hallucination, then you're going to be in danger from trains and buses and all kinds of things which really exist. And my response is always, well, the control is just as important as the hallucination in this. So I'm not saying that perception should be divorced from objective reality. But the idea that accuracy or that maximizing accuracy always maximizes utility, I think is just demonstrably not the case. And it's not the case for a bunch of reasons. I mean, one reason is one good example is color. So, we experience a world where color is very important in guiding our behavior and not just for aesthetics, but for helping us navigate the visual world. But when we see colors, we don't see things as they really are in objective reality. We see both less than what's really there because our eyes are only sensitive to 3 wavelengths. And these wavelengths are just different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. Out of those 3 wavelengths, we experience millions of colors. So with color, we see both less than and more than what's really there. I think that example is useful because it tells us that seeing what's really there is not even a coherent benchmark. What would it mean to see what's really there in the domain of color? Now, when it comes to the train example, yes, of course, my perceptual apparatus should convey the fact that this very solid, very dangerous object is approaching very quickly. And that's an aspect of objective reality that needs to be present in my perceptual best guess. But the train, will still have an appearance in my experience. It will have a color, it will have a shape, its sense of movement through time will have a particular perceptual character. These are all not the universe as it really is. They are inevitably aspects of perceptual construction. And then there are examples where perception might be usefully different from objective reality. Like we might have biases of optimism or pessimism in our perception, which can be quite handy in terms of guiding our survival. And the final example I'll give is the body. So when we perceive the interior of our body, this is a whole realm of perception called interoception. Now, we don't perceive our internal organs as having shapes or colors or places, even though they do. We perceive emotions. We perceive things as going relatively badly or relatively well. And that's what's useful for our survival. So I think that the overall lesson for me is fairly clear. We can never see the universe exactly as it is. It doesn't even really make sense. And so the perceptual character of our experience will always be constructed, and it will be evaluated. Evolution will have shaped these kinds of perceptions so that they are maximally useful for us.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, especially what you mentioned earlier with the color. For example, if you're talking about a chair, there are some, we may distinguish primary and objective and subjective properties. Okay, chair might be beautiful, ugly, out of shape. They depend on how you observe them, what qualities you find interesting. So are you saying that we can also put color in that category? And if we do so, what other qualities that we usually think of as objective might also fall under subjectives? Like, what is the limit there?
It's a good question. So there are some properties which people agree are mind dependent, right? So money is a good example. Money exists because people believe that certain things are stores of value and other things aren't. But then solidity is an example of something that's not mind independent in this way. The train is a good example. If it hits you, it's going to hurt whether you believe this or not. And I think a lot of things kind of lie in the middle. So color seems to be more constructed than something like solidity. It's unclear that colors would exist in any way without visual systems. But even solidity, the way we experience solidity, is still a construction. And for me, that's the key point. So there is an interesting and important distinction between things that are mind dependent versus mind independent, but their appearance. So a chair, again, chairs exist in a way, but there's a sort of, again, a long argument about whether the extent to which chairs exist in a mind-independent way. In philosophy, again, Wittgenstein talks about this endlessly, right? And then is it just sort of particular bits of wood organized in a particular way and so on? I don't really want to get lost in all those philosophical games, language games. Chairs exist in the sense that if I throw one at you, it's going to hurt if it hits you, even if you don't believe it or see it. But our experience of it as a chair, as something you can sit on, as something that fits in a particular category of objects, that's something that's going to have elements that are constructed socially, psychologically, cognitively.